Welcome back to Jersey Matters. There has been a lot of focus on Newark, New Jersey schools over the years. The takeover is over, so what is the way forward? Here to talk about that is Ron Chaluisan, Executive Director of Newark Trust for Education. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Newark Trust for Education, what is it?
Newark Trust for Education is a not-for-profit organization, and we're dedicated to bringing resources, people, and ideas together in order to help address some of the complex issues that are facing our young people as they prepare to be successful in school and in the world.
In Newark, and Newark schools have some challenges. I don't think that's a secret. There was a state takeover. That's over. You just had an election. You have a new school board in there. Where do you fit in all of that?
Sure. So we collaborate pretty closely with the city and the district, really looking to see how academics and non-academics can meld together in order to help our young people and the families be successful in the demands that they have around public education.
So is it all directly in the schools? Because there are other things in the community in Newark that affect schoolwork, that affect the schools.
Sure, and we think of our work actually in three buckets. We really start with where the children are. So children live in their homes, they live in the community, and they live in the schools. And one of the big elements that we are concerned with and addressing is their socio-emotional development, how they see the world, how the world sees them, and how they reconcile those differences between them. So in order for young people to really be successful in school, they need to be thinking about what is relevant to them. How are they addressing some of these issues that you're talking about in their personal lives? So for example, young people that might be faced with trauma, with traumatic incidents in their lives, what are the supports that are present for them, both in the school, but also at home and in the community? And how accessible are those supports for the young people so that they're able to address those issues and then really focus on their learning without being interrupted in that focus.
So a school has a child, if there's no after school activities or no breakfast program in the morning, you're probably from 8 till 3 or 8 till 2:30. And what you're focusing on is, okay, that's when you have the child, but there's something more important going on that you have to be aware of and acknowledge, or you're never going to be able to educate them.
I think it's both and. So during that time, for example, as teachers are interacting with the young people in the classrooms, right, we are asking them to think about how are the materials that they are doing relevant to the young person? How are they engaging in those materials?
Do they have to figure that out, or do you help them with that?
So we help them with that, and actually New Jersey is in a really good place. There's a state group called SEL4NJ that actually has resources for teachers, for parents, for community members around how this might be done. And Newark actually is also in the forefront. For example, Newark just recently received some additional funding that they had applied for that is helping them supplement their core programs in schools. So thinking about guidance counseling, there are three big pieces, right? Training of teachers, how do you actually do this work? Secondly, curriculum that integrates this kind of work into the day-to-day experiences of the young person. And then thirdly, this whole notion of access to additional services if they need those services. So
you deal outside of the school then a lot, and so you deal with some of the problems outside of the school and how it relates to the school. How do people in the school system think of the schools? Do they think of them as a stepladder? Do they think of them as a way out, as a way up? Or do they have another opinion? Yeah,
I think for families, the families in Newark, and the way that we try to address this is Newark is this thriving city, right? There are a lot of very interesting and positive things going on right now in the city. And so the real part for us is how does education connect our young people and their families to that thriving part of the city?
I get that, but most importantly, the students and the families themselves would have to see it that way.
Yes.
If they don't see it that way, it's useless.
Absolutely, and I do think that creating those bridges for families to see it. So you started by saying that we just transitioned from state control to local control. I think this is a step in that direction, right? For 23 years, the city saw the school board as advisory to superintendents. At this point, the community is electing their school board members, right? So there is a connection now where the school board has authority over the school, the community has authority over the school board. You start to see some triangulation around those important matters. So how are we supporting our young people, again, within the schools, absolutely important, and then how is that aligned to their experiences in the home and in the community? And making those connections is part of the work that we're trying to do.
Much of what you're dealing with, we deal with in journalism a lot. And that is that everybody talks about the facts, who, what, why, where, and when, and then it's always sometimes why. And it seems like you're saying why is maybe the most important question. Why should I be studying? Why should I be going here? Why is a child reluctant to be here? Why? What is going on in their life that would make that reluctance? Is that fair?
I think, yes, absolutely. Relevance in education is one of the critical elements. I think I would broaden your side of that in saying it's not, there is a portion of why am I here, and then the other part is why is the organization there, right?
But why the question?
But why is the question? And so schools, when you think about trauma-informed practice, right, that's an organizational strategy. So schools are thinking about how they interact with the young people that come to them and what systems they have in place. Socio-emotional development is internal to the child.
You brought up trauma a couple times.
Yes.
Now, this is the second time you brought trauma. Is this a real problem? I mean, is it a bigger problem in, like, say, the Newark School District?
I don't know that it's a bigger problem in the Newark school system. I think many of our children kind of are engaged. If you think about some of the big issues that are confronting us as communities, right? So whether you think about moving towards a safer community, if you think about moving towards housing stability, if you think about just young people's lives and dealing with sometimes loss in their family, divorce. There are lots of issues that our young people confront.
That will affect their schoolwork.
That's right.
And it's important to know about the individual, each individual, and what their trauma may be.
Right, and then have systems in place, not individual responses, but systemic responses to those young people so that the young people know what's available, have ease of access to those supports, and then can actually use the supports to minimize the barriers to their learning.
And this is happening right now?
This is happening right now. I think there's obviously room for growth, as in all elements of education. But the Newark itself has made a commitment. Mayor Baraka has actually, as part of his platform, talked about the entire city being a trauma-informed city. The district itself, under Superintendent Leon, has made a commitment to the socio-emotional development of young people and to the training of teachers in order to be able to provide
How do we know if it's successful?
There are groups that have been putting together accountability structures. As I said, SEL4NJ is one such group. We want to understand where young people are, and we want to see how they develop. So one of the best ways to do this that we found is a systematic use of pre and post testing on some of the skills. And the skills are pretty straightforward. Self-awareness, social awareness, effective decision-making. So these are skills that we can actually assess.
And you'll have analytics on that?
There are assessments that help us to make those kinds of determinations. I think the question is, and part of the work that we are trying to do as an organization is to make those assessments integrated into the regular experience of young people and then use the results of those in our own decision making. The Trust has been on the ground for the last 3 years working with a number of schools and the project teams and leadership teams of those schools, learning about how to do this in the least obstructive, right? To really integrate and not make it something else that needs to be paid attention to.
I think everybody, I'm falling into that trap. Everybody looks for analytics these days, like, well, how do you succeed? And sometimes the success is just in a child.
Right, and we as educators and I'm sure as parents, right, we look at our children, right? So there is an anecdotal piece to this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
How do young people get better at making decisions? And by putting them into more situations where they have to make decisions, you start to practice that decision-making ability, right? How do I see myself? Those are simple questions. How are you experiencing today? How are you interacting with your friends? So I think thinking about what the normal way of assessing some of these and then layering onto that a more systematic approach is one of the things.
Things are more important than numbers, I guess.
There we go.
Sometimes. Thank you so much.
Take
I
care.
appreciate
It's
you
great.
being here. Ron Chaluisan, Executive Director of the Newark Trust for Education. Still to come on Jersey Matters, is Paterson the movie capital of New Jersey? The mayor thinks so. We'll talk to him next.